Uh, and there's other folks too, Douglas County, I see Amy from Beaufort City Schools, so Kyle from
Okay.
don't want to leave anybody out. But so we're so glad to see everybody. Hope you guys are having a good week. I wanted to get us all together because there are a few changes for Youth Assembly. And we just wanted to go over everything. We're doing this in recording, so our colleagues that couldn't make this will have access to that information. We're here to support you throughout the process. I'm going to turn it over to the newly minted Dr. Christine Hartness. She defended her dissertation last week, I believe, or week before last. And so if you ever want to talk about presidential executive orders in your class, that is Christine's expertise. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to turn it over to her and let her guide us in the conversation. Thanks.
You know, I've always said I know a little bit about a lot, but now I can say I have been officially distinguished as an expert on one topic at least. So good news. It's great to see all of you. I'm so excited for Youth Assembly. This year is going to be just a really great year for Youth Assembly. We are expecting huge growth, which is where a lot of this change is going to come from for the program. Just to give you a little bit of detail about that growth, for those of you who don't know, we have officially been gifted the JROTC program under our public management and government and public management cluster by the Georgia DOE. So we are expecting a lot of those folks to come. Plus, the program itself is simply just growing. More and more people are knowing about it and seeing the great things that are happening at Youth Assembly and bringing their students. So part of the changes are going to be due to that. So the first one I want to introduce to you is that we are going to be adding an additional program this year. So as you know, we have legislative, judicial, lobbyist, and media programs. This year, legislative will not just be General Assembly. We will also have a model Congress. So we are suggesting that to be for your freshmen. It will be a slightly smaller, little bit less fast-paced version of the Youth Assembly, General Assembly that you guys are used to seeing. It will be only House. So the students who take part in that will take part in federal issues. So when they write their bills, which I'll speak about later, those will be on federal issues instead of state issues. So that is one of the major changes that we're making, is the addition of that program. It will run very similarly to the General Assembly in terms of procedure and things of that nature, but it is going to be a new program that I hope your students will decide to take part in. We will be at the Capitol this year. That has been confirmed. We've got all the rooms we asked for and then some. I think we've got that whole Capitol and several buildings besides. So we're going to be all over the Capitol this year. It's going to be a lot of great time there. So just be aware that MARTA ticket, for those of you who are a few years ago, remember having to get those MARTA tickets. We will be doing that again as part of registration this year. So just be aware of that. With the changes that we have.
And let me mention, Christine, the MARTA ticket is an additional option when you're registering to choose. I believe it's $12 a person this year. And we do it as optional and not included in the price because there's some groups who simply want to drive to the Capitol, and I don't blame you. I'm going to be driving to the Capitol. So just as you're going through the registration process, of course, have the student rate, and then it'll have an option. Would you like to add MARTA tickets? So, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that is just important to note that all students will wind up at the Capitol on Monday and Tuesday. Even if they take part in the Model Congress, lobbyists, media, judicial, everybody will be on the Capitol that Monday and Tuesday. So just be aware that your groups will not be splitting between the hotel and the Capitol. We'll be at the Hilton Atlanta Midtown on Sunday evening, but then all groups will be at the Capitol Monday and Tuesday both. So speaking of the new programs, it does lead us to our next change here, which I'm hopefully going to be able to pull this chart up for you. One thing we're doing is we are now going to have to start limiting participation in certain programs. And the reason for that is, let's say, one group has 50 people and they put all 50 in the judicial program, for example. So obviously that means that several other groups will not be able to participate in judicial programs. So for this reason, you can see here, this is just a general outline. This is not necessarily what your group size will be. This is based on ratios of various sizes so that you get an idea of what we're looking for in terms of numbers. So for example, if you look at the ratio of 20 students, if you bring a total of 20 to the program, you can have 10 in the General Assembly, 4 in judicial, so that's 2 teams of 2, 1 lobbyist, 1 media representative, 4 members of Congress, and you are allowed 1 candidate for the big 3 and 1 candidate for the Speaker of the Model Congress. So that is what this chart is. And again, or maybe not again, but we will send this out to you just so that you have it. It has been sent out, I think, to so you may have already seen this. But it is important to know that we will be enforcing these limitations just so that everybody has a fair opportunity to take part in all those different programs. So your biggest limits, hard limits, are probably going to be in your judicial programs. Those have to be in teams, and it's going to be juniors and seniors only. There is going to be no freshmen or sophomores in the judicial program this year. We do highly recommend that you put your freshmen again in that Congress program. It's going to be a great kind of training zone for them as they enter the program for the first time. But just know that the judicial does have a hard requirement of juniors and seniors only. Again, just because we are growing at such a high rate, we have to make sure that we're allowing access to all students. So you can see this chart. It's giving you the general ideas. So if you have, let's say you have 15, I would probably round up, use rounding rules. If you have 11, use the 10 rules. I mean, it's going to be kind of like that. And of course, anything like this, as with anything else, you can always contact us if you have questions as well. If you've got a group of 33 and have no idea how to split that up, we can help with that. So just let us know. So
and Christine, what I would also say is that first column after programs, if there are any that are joining us today and you're part of the second cohort of Be the People, that you're predetermined on where you can be. You'll have 2 students in the freshman Congress or the Congress, and then you'll have 2 students in the legislative program. The other programs are not options for your students, as they will be first-year students.
Yes. And that's an important note for anybody who's on the call. I think I'm looking at the names. I'm not seeing any others that might have first-year students, but just as your as knowledge for you, for everybody, first-year
Aisha will be first year.
I know she was Be the People though, so that already explained it to her. But for anybody else, first-year students should either go to Model Congress or to the General Assembly, depending on their grade level. So just be aware of that. They should not be in these other programs, lobbyists or media, for example. They should go to those legislative programs. Another note here based on this candidate. So for those of you who are new to our programs or just need a reminder, the big 3 candidates are Speaker of the House for the General Assembly, Lieutenant Governor, and Youth Governor. So those are those big 3 positions that students can apply to race and campaign and hopefully be elected. It is important to note that this will be the last year where we can accept candidates for these programs or these positions that from non-pathway schools. And that pathway that I'm talking about is government and public management. I believe it's technically its official term. It is the embedded social studies and CTAE pathway that the Georgia DOE has been working on. The reason for this is that as a newly minted CTSO, we do have requirements from the Georgia DOE. These 3 candidates will also serve as state officers for the CTSO, so they do need to be involved in the CTAE pathway. So for anybody who's interested in that pathway and interested in finding out more of that, I think it kind of goes a little bit outside the scope of what we're doing today, but absolutely something we can help with. We do have a lot of support in starting that pathway and getting administrators on board and whatever steps you need to take to be involved in that. That will limit your ability to have candidates if that's important to you. So something to know there. I believe Dr. Hargis, Dr. Trammell, correct me if I'm wrong. I think those are the major changes that need to be covered, and we can just go into bills for a little while here.
So also, and the reason on the main three obviously is the Georgia DOE. Those students in those top three positions also serve as state officers for the CTSO. So when they go, for example, to the state officer events with the other CTSO officers, it is it's just very challenging for them when they're talking about the coursework and all that sort of stuff when it's compared to their colleagues in FFA or FBLA or some of those others. So we're trying to we're trying to ensure there's consistency across the board with the other CTSOs, and the Georgia Department of Education said you need to. So there's that. Also, schedule wise, we are providing 2 meals as a part of this, as we usually do. Typically on the Sunday night of the event, we do a pizza party. We are moving the governor's gala to be that Sunday night. So when you arrive to youth assembly, and this is very important, your students need to go ahead and be dressed because there's no guarantee that they'll have access to their hotel rooms, although the Hilton is usually very, very on top of things, and that's usually not an issue. But your students, just to make sure, I would have them already dressed when they arrive. That way we don't have 800 to 1,000 people trying to dress in a bathroom or whatever. We will have a secure storage area for luggage in the event that people are not in the rooms, but arrive dressed. So that first evening we will get started with training and all that sort of stuff. And then we will go into the governor's gala, which will have our speakers and all of that sort of stuff. The second meal that we provide will be lunch on Tuesday at the Capitol. Now that is actually going to be provided to you in terms of a $10 bill for each person that's registered, because we will have 2 houses and 2 senates going on in addition to the model Congress. So committees will be running continuously. You have an Oglethorpe house and you have a Carter house. So you've got a lot of moving pieces. And so basically what's going to happen is your students and you will work out a time when they will walk across the street either to the Sloppy Floyd building to grab lunch in the cafeteria, or they'll go into the cafeteria at the bottom of the the former judicial building, which is now where the Attorney General's office is. There's a small cafeteria down there. There will not be an official hard break, everyone programming stops for lunch. So that's correct, right, Christine?
That is correct.
Yeah, so it's a staggered lunch. So that's important for you to know. On Tuesday, we will be adjourning from the Capitol at 1:30. Again, there's not a hard break for lunch that day at all. There's not a break for lunch at all. So they're going to want to make sure on Tuesday that they eat their protein shake or whatever, obviously there's snack bar and stuff there in the Capitol they can get snacks at, but that is the schedule for that. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks.
Yes, I'm glad you did, because I would have forgotten to mention that. And we've had so many changes, but I guess I'm so used to them that it just feels like the norm now. We've been planning for this for a few months, so I'm glad you mentioned that. One thing to mention too, for those of you who will be joining us for the first time, is there is a Starbucks in the Hilton, but they are most likely not going to be able to get their Starbucks in time for you to get to the Capitol on Monday and Tuesday. So just make sure the kids are aware of that. I know we have that issue sometimes, and they get stuck in line and think we're going to hold the program. We won't. But other than that, that is really the main part of our actual changes that we're going to have this year. Most of what's going to be happening is going to be stuff that you guys have seen over and over again. You're very familiar with the way the program works. So what I'll just go over now is just a little bit about bills and how to do that. But before I move into kind of the bill workshop, I just want to give you all a chance to ask any questions you have, questions, comments, concerns, or insults. Let's see what we have going on. Anybody feel totally lost? Anything we need to cover in more depth in those changes? Just give you all a chance to share any concerns you have. Pull my chat up. There it is.
Christine, hey guys, I was just going to ask, are we going to get an itinerary of this, just so we can know where to be and everything?
Absolutely.
Okay,
So
good.
we have confirmed our schedule amongst ourselves. I think just late last week we got that done. We will need to we have to check with the Capitol about a few things and get all that confirmed. But once we have that, we will put it in the bill book, which will go out to you two weeks or so before the event. So you will absolutely have that. If you need details now, I can give you some, but we probably won't share that schedule yet since it's not totally locked in.
No problem. Thank you.
No problem.
Christine, I have one question.
Yes,
Real
ma'am.
quick, just to clarify, excuse me. If I'm bringing freshmen, the freshmen should be in the Congress, what did you call it? The Model Congress, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. We are recommending that for this year. Now, I guess we say recommend in that if you have a couple older students, maybe sophomores, they can take part, like especially if your group is too large and you need to put some kids somewhere. We're trying to save that for the younger students though. They definitely have to be in legislative though, either way.
Okay, so, but I have, like, say I bring 6 or 7 freshmen and my slot, the recommended on this ratio is only 4 down there. Could the other 4 or 2 go into the General Assembly area?
Yes, they could.
Okay, all right, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
No problem. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions pop up. So I'm going to give you all just a brief review. I think most of you are very familiar with the bill writing process. But for those of you who aren't, we are going to go through it. Just before I start, and I'll say it again probably when I'm done, be aware that we do offer bill writing workshops. And what that looks like is that I will get on a virtual call with your students and I can go through the bill writing process as a whole, or if they even have ideas already that they want to bring to me, I can work through 1 or 2 of them with them and go through that process. So this is not going to be the only time that you have an understanding of this bill writing process, bill submissions. I can do a one-on-one training, which tends to be a little bit better when it comes to more specific questions on that process. So this is more just as an advisor, here's what you need to know about what this bill writing process looks like. So what I'm going to share is I'm going to go through from the very beginning on our website. You can see it now, I believe. So this is our website that you guys are used to, georgiacivics.org. The first way to find our bill writing resources is to go to Programs, High School, Youth Assembly. And then when you scroll down, there's a number of resources here and a large amount of information. So I highly suggest if you've never been to the program to look into this. It gives you a whole lot of information about everything we do. But for bill writing specifically, you can click on Conference Resources and Materials. And then you click Writing Your Bill Resources. Why a bill template is also something we'll look at. But let's start with Writing Your Bill Resources. So what this pulls up is a set of steps that students can follow to write their bills. So we offer a number of resources here. So their first step is to choose a topic, and just a few tips from the selection of the bills side of things. A lot of students like to submit bills to do with education, which we love. It's something that impacts their life, something that they see and they know what the issues are. But just be aware that we try to balance the topics, and so we tend to only select a smaller number of those education ones. So selecting an education topic increases the chances that you will not get to debate that bill, if that makes sense, just because we kind of want to spread the topics out and not just be talking about education. But that being said, we don't censor bills. We're not in the business of picking one side or the other or whatever. We just want to make sure the bills are going to lead to constructive debate. So they can be on any topic the student wants. One note though, and this happens all the time, and it's probably pretty normal, we need to make sure that the distinction is made. In the General Assembly, bills have to be on topics that are state related. And the model Congress, they must be federal related. If they are submitted, if a General Assembly bill is a federal law, that will probably not be selected. It's pretty much a guarantee that it won't be selected. And vice versa, if a state law issue is submitted as a model Congress bill, that is not going to be selected. We just need to make sure those two legislative bodies are only looking at the bills that they would actually look at in real life. So students can pick any topic of their choosing. We highly suggest that they pick topics that they're passionate about. It simply makes the process more interesting and more fun for everybody, but also because it'll simply just be easier if they truly are interested in the topic. We do offer a number of resources here that you can click on that lead to lists of links for research. So that's a great resource for your students as they start to consider, and may also even be a good place, excuse me, a good starting place for them as they consider what their topic is going to be. These categories may be on things that they hadn't considered before. So it's a good place to kind of start that brainstorming process. The second part of this process is going to be to refine the idea. They're going to identify what the problem is and what the needs are in terms of a bill. If it was to be turned into a law, what would it need to accomplish? So that some of these steps, it gives you some of the different ideas and the different things you need to consider as you go through the bill writing process. So that's what the next step of what they'll need to do is to consider all these different pieces, and then they will use that along with research to then bring the two together. So they're considering what is going on, what is the problem, what is the solution trying to accomplish, what different factors are going into it. So, you know, when we write a bill, and we'll look at this in a moment, we always have to talk about definitions. So if your bill has to do with motor vehicles, you have to define what is going to be considered a motor vehicle in terms of this bill. So it's not just, oh, I'm going to say motor vehicle and it's a car. Well, according to the law, you have to define what a car is. So that's part of that research. It's part of that refining process that they have to go through. You also have to consider constitutionality. Would it be a constitutional law? That's going to be a factor that we consider not only in selection, but will come up in debate if we allow it through. I'm not going to say that we don't sometimes allow some in that we know are going to hit up against those debates, because that's a great thing for kids to have to consider. We start looking at amendments and things of that nature that to problem solve in those situations. One note I should probably make is that even if a student submits a bill that could potentially be something that already existed, maybe in part, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to accept it. We will sometimes act as if those laws don't exist in those situations, but that doesn't mean that they should just be, you know, regurgitating a law that already exists as their bill. But if pieces of it overlap, we just pretty much just pretend that that's not already there. Doesn't happen often, but it does sometimes. So kids need to consider all those different factors as they write their bills. Once they're ready to submit it, they go here. There's all these different submission buttons. So it will depend. Is this Congress? Is it General Assembly? And they'll be able to submit it. So now I just want to pull up the template here, or the sample bill. It's the same place we just were, so it's under the, yes. Any questions on this part before I move on to the template? Yes, we're good. So the YA bill template, it's exactly what it sounds like. We've created a model bill, a sample bill here, and it just outlines the different pieces of the bill that you can go through and make sure that your students have all correct. So the first thing they have to have is their purpose. This is it's sometimes referred to as a title. It's not and really, but you know, sort of. It's basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is the purpose of the bill. What is the bill trying to accomplish? So this bill is to decrease the number of deaths on Georgia's highways by enacting a law making it mandatory that all persons riding in the front seat of a motor vehicle in the state of Georgia wear seatbelts. It then has information about who it was introduced by. So we enter this information. The information is what is filled out on the submission, and we'll put that in the correct format for them. They're not actually formatting any of this bill. We do that on our end, but they submit all these different pieces. The next part here that they'll submit is section 1, which is the definitions. That is where, you know, my example earlier was what is going to be considered a motor vehicle. So if they're saying, you know, see if I can come up with an example. Okay, let's use our silly training bill. If they're talking about ice cream in their bill, and they want to illegalize chocolate ice cream. Well, first you've got to define what ice cream is and what constitutes chocolate ice cream. So it's a definition process, because as we know in laws, you know, if there's a loophole, someone is going to, you know, jump right through it. So that's what the definitions are for. The other sections in the bill basically just describe the bill in more detail. What is it doing? What's its purpose, et cetera, et cetera. And then the final one will be the punishment. What is going to be the punishment if someone violates that law? And we add the last 2 sections, which are implementation. When's it going to take effect? And the section 5 here, all laws and parts of laws in conflict with this act are hereby repealed. So we add those automatically. But you'll see when you get to the submission thing, which I'll pull up here, the submission page, just so you can see it. They'll enter their email address. They'll enter your email address, the purpose, name, their delegation name, which is your school. And then they put their sections in, and it lays out, this is where you have your definitions. This is the action items. You can have as many action items as you need. Enactment terms, that's the last 2 sections. Do note though that we do require that bills be 1 page in length. Simply, we don't have time for bills that are longer than that. So just be aware of that. All right. I believe that really just covers the basics of the bill writing process there. And I'm seeing a question in the chat. Oh, Randall's already handled it. All right, so that pretty much covers the process here of Youth Assembly's bills. For those of you who have students who are interested in judicial, it is a little bit different, and I'm not going to cover it at length here because it doesn't apply to as many people, but do understand we do judicial training specifically for those students who will take part in the judicial program. That is a partner program, so it's 2 students as a team, and they will argue both sides of a case. That's the short explanation of that. We have selected our case for this year, but it has not been posted yet for anybody who's about to ask. That will be posted in the coming weeks, and we will also post about the judicial training. Lobbyist program is what it sounds like. It's students lobbying for different bills or against different bills. And then of course the media program is the media. So there's students just taking on all those different roles. Those are the different programs for those of you who are new to the Youth Assembly. The General Assembly and the Congress are the most involved in terms of preparation work, probably, well, arguably, but they write those bills, and everybody else has a little bit they have to do to prepare as well. So Youth Assembly this year, for those of you who haven't seen the details yet, it is from November 3rd through the 5th. That is a Sunday through Tuesday as usual. We will be at the Hilton Atlanta Midtown. The cost of that is going to be $415 as the early bird price. So that means if you register by the date, I'm pulling it up now, the date is, early bird is October 4th. So if you register by then, you get a $15 discount and the free t-shirt included in your registration. A registration after that will go up to $430. And it does not include the t-shirt. You can also see a number of other deadlines here. The financial assistance deadline is September 25th. So the application is available on the forms down here. And once you submit that, we will have those decisions sent by September 27th, so that there is still plenty of time before that early bird registration date to put in your information and to know for sure who's going to be able to attend. This year, scholarships are going to be in $50 and $100 increments. So at the higher level student, the higher need level student will get $100 off of their registration, and then the $50 is that lower level. So that is something to be aware of. Bill submission is due by October 11th, and just understand that we are back-to-back conferences pretty much the last 2 weeks leading up to Youth Assembly. There's going to be a very quick turnaround on these bill books for us. So that deadline is a drop deadline. We will not accept bills after that date. So just make sure your students are aware if they want to get their bill in, they need to make sure it's turned in by the 11th. Parking at the Hilton Atlanta is $35 a day. That is unlimited entry and exit. There is bus parking. You must purchase it in advance. We do not arrange for the bus parking. There's a parking lot nearby the hotel. We have that information here, and they can help you get that set up. We have provided a restaurant list here. So if you need places for dinner, the registration link is here as well. Advisor costs for this year are $250 for a shared room and $400 for a private room. And you still get the free advisor shared room credit for every 16 students that you register. So if you bring 16 students, one advisor is free, and that does stack. So if you have 32 students, you get 2 advisor shared rooms for free, et cetera, et cetera. Now, it is important to note that the $415 early bird price is also for chartered members, meaning they have paid their $15 dues to us. And so just note that. So they will need to make sure they've filled out that link as well, which we have sent out and will send out again. So excuse me. The late payment for registration is going to be $25. But I'll just tell you that you definitely want to register early, especially if your kids want certain programs, because I got a feeling those are going to fill up. So I think that covers most of the general information about this Youth Assembly. The gala, yeah, we talked about all that. So that's the basic stuff. Any questions about any of that? Anything that I've thrown at you this evening? Oh. All right. Well, if you don't have questions, you are free to leave as you wish. Of course, if you come up with questions, we are always available. Feel free to email me at any time. I'm happy to help and to help you prepare your students. If I need to do a bill workshop, I'm happy to do that. Any of those things are happy. Will the guest speakers for the gala be announced in advance? Probably.
Christine.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know you mentioned that you would encourage freshmen to do the Model Congress, but if I'm taking some girls that are maybe juniors and seniors that have never done Youth Assembly before, is it okay for them to do Model Congress as well, or you just want the younger students in that?
No, it's okay. That's especially if they're new to the program, that is okay. Now, just make sure that you're aware of those ratios, just so that we're not overbearing any of those programs. But other than that, I think that would be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
And I may have missed this part. Would there be a hotel shuttle to and from the hotel, or are we responsible to getting there?
No, so there's no shuttle. However, we do at registration, there is a chance to, or an opportunity to add the MARTA tickets for
That's what you
your
were talking about.
entire conference as an extra. I think it's $12 or $13, something like that this year. And that's for both days to and from. So that will cover that. And it's the hotel without having to try to direct you with my hands, the hotel is linked entirely inside to the MARTA station. So it's maybe a 5-minute walk through the mall, but you don't have to actually go outside to get to the MARTA station. But once you get to the Capitol's MARTA station, you will walk from there to the Capitol.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
And Taisha, since you're a cohort 2 of Be the People, the rules are a little bit different for your group. I mean, you and your 4 students are going to be free for everything. So that's kind of a side thing. We will cover more of that at the Media Academy.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you.
Justin, the way that it works most of the time at the Hilton Atlanta is that if Justin asked if they could go back to the hotel to pick up their luggage. Generally, what we do is we have all luggage placed in an advisor's room. Every group gets to keep one advisor room to put all their luggage in. And then after the Capitol release, you can go back to the hotel and grab it and leave. I will say, if you are able to bring your own bus, sometimes it's easier to load up before because it's all kind of gets chaotic. Everybody trying to get out at the same time, but you know, it's really just depends on what you have available to you.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So if I only have potentially 9th and 10th graders, depending on who wants to participate this year. The 10th graders all came last year and learned so much and had such a great time. But they would be, so I could potentially bring, I think at most like 9 students. So it'd be kind of in that 8 ratio group. And my 9th graders would probably prefer to be in the Congress. Just the way that Congress will work, and I'm sorry if you hear my background, my kids are watching TV. The house, the Congress, so you said it would just be a house. But it would run very similarly, like would there be the Speaker of the House, and would there be the committees, all that stuff too?
Yes, ma'am. It is going to run pretty much the same as General Assembly. We're contemplating some procedure changes, but it's not going to be a super noticeable change, I don't think, to students. I think only us, parliamentary procedure nerds would really notice a major difference there. But it's going to be, it's the same process. They have bills, which will go to committee and then be debated on the floor. They just won't have crossover as we would normally have. Right.
Thank you.
Let's see. On the chartered membership, Kyle, if every student is now paying a $15 membership fee themselves, we are no longer doing a $250 fee for each chapter. It is per student. However, we do, as we're getting all that information in, we will invoice the school, I believe, on October 1st, and that can be paid all in one payment through the school. Mr. Shook, will the freshmen in the Congress have access to the House floor or not? No, sir. They will be in the old Supreme Court room at the Capitol, if I remember correctly, and they will not have access to that. The Appropriations Chamber. Thank you, Dr. Trammell. We will have students in the House floor at all times. As Dr. Trammell mentioned, we have 2 General Assembly programs running essentially at the same time. When one group is in chambers, the other group will be in committees, and they will swap throughout the day. So there will not be, they will not be empty at any point. When session is not, he said you can go in for a group photo if you'd like to. So it's kind of, as they get into their older years, they kind of get into the chambers themselves. But it's our compromise in order to allow us to even be in the chambers at all. And this is the compromise. Any other questions? Mr. Arnold, I did see your email about the mock election. If you'll send me or not your email, your question, if you'll send me an email about that, excuse me, we'll need to talk about that, I think, a little bit more to see what we can do about that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shook, with two groups running in youth assembly simultaneously, does each student effectively have less time in the chambers compared to previous years? No, it does not impact their time in chambers. So instead of when in previous years when students were in committee, obviously they weren't in chambers. So now when they're not in committee, the other group will be in chambers. So they're getting the same amount of time in chambers for both group. They're just swapping back and forth. We're just making better use of the chambers, if nothing else.
So who will be going back and forth? Will we only be using the representatives chambers and not the Senate, or you just have, because there's so many people, you're splitting it up like that?
We have two general assemblies. So it'll be the Oglethorpe Assembly
Okay.
and the Carter Assembly. So it'll be two houses and two senates. So each chamber will be used. So when let's say Carter Assembly is in chambers, meaning they're both in the House and the Senate, then the Oglethorpe is then in committees, and then they will swap for the next period of time. The Congress will not be swapping. They'll be in their one room, in their committee rooms as whatever.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Sorry, no. Will the schools be potentially split between those two, the Oglethorpe and Carter?
No, the goal is to not do that. We're
Okay.
going to consider that when we make those selections or those assignments, I guess. So that it's the same kind of consideration that we do. We generally try to keep the House, even a group from being split between the House and the Senate when we can. But it doesn't always work that way, but we will definitely be making every effort to keep all in Carter, all in Oglethorpe, etc. Gina, I'm not sure. Do you mean, I think you maybe were just asking the same question about the proposed grouping. Is that what you mean about the assignments, if they're going to be split?
Yes, that
Okay.
chart that you had up, yes. When do you think you'll send that out?
It'll probably be tomorrow morning. I'll have the recording for this and I'll send it all at once. You actually should have it, just if you need it sooner than that. It was, in Dr. Trammell's back to school email, we actually have a lot of information, but it is somewhere in there in that. So if you need it sooner than tomorrow morning, it is there.
Tomorrow's good, so thank you.
Okay, no problem. Mr. Shook, the suggested arrival time registration is going to be beginning at 3 or 3:30 as in past years. I'm just trying to double check what we put on our schedule, but either way, I wouldn't arrive too much earlier than that. That tends to just not be a good idea. So 2:30 or 3, if it, depending on the time. I'm pulling that up as I talk or trying to. We are looking at a 3 p.m. registration time, so 2:30 or so is probably fine. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, you guys are free to go. So excited to work with all of you. Again, reach out if you have any questions at all. That is what I'm here for. So I'm happy to help. I will send out this recording and some information tomorrow morning. Ms. Wojcik, yes, absolutely. I will put my email address in the chat. That is the best way to contact me is through email. But I can also schedule a Zoom call if we need to. Mr. Shook, the Monday lunch is the $10 lunch that Dr. Trammell was talking about, where you get $10, I think he said cash, is what we'll be doing with that Monday launch.
Christine, thank you again for all that y'all are doing with
Of
this. It's
course, we're
awesome.
so excited
I'm
to see you,
excited.
Taisha.
Yeah, I am too. I was running home so I can get on this meeting. So yes, ma'am. I look
Well,
forward to
good.
seeing
We're
you
so
all,
excited.
and
Let us know if you have any
yes,
questions.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Gotta
Thank
get my
you.
teachers
Thank
trying
you.
to be kids now.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jeff.